Am I the a-hole for telling my wife's friend that her taste in men is the reason she's a single mom? I, 29 male, have known my wife, 30 female, and her best friend Jess, 29 female, since we were all 11. We attended middle and high school together, but I wasn't in their social circles at all. I was always one of the sort of nerdy, awkward kids, and the two of them were both very popular. My wife in particular was extremely popular because she was, and still is, extremely beautiful, kind, and intelligent. She was even our student body president and valedictorian. Jess was also very pretty, and I even had a tiny crush on her back then, and similarly popular, and they've been best friends since kindergarten. My wife and I started dating our senior year of high school after we were paired together to complete a project in one of our classes. We realized that we got along really well, and she asked me out, and I definitely wasn't saying no to her. But Jess, from the very start, did not respect our relationship and firmly believed that my wife could do much better. She has, in a decade plus since, consistently told that my wife is out of my league, that I was lucky she settled for me so young, and that my wife belongs with a more attractive and successful man. Now, I'm the first one to admit that my wife is out of my league. She's far more attractive, makes more money, and is just generally an amazing human being. But hearing it so often doesn't exactly feel good. Jess also has tried to convince my wife to cheat on me multiple times, and has even tried to set her up with other men because she doesn't approve of my wife and I being the only partners either of us have ever had. Jess has a daughter, 5 female, whose father bailed on her and raises her as a single mom. Jess actually dropped out of med school to raise her daughter once she realized the father was not going to be in the picture. My wife and I absolutely love her daughter and love having her over. Jess had a date on Saturday night, so she left her daughter with us for the night and came to pick her up on Sunday and stayed for lunch. As I was preparing lunch for everyone and her daughter was playing in the yard, Jess and my wife were talking about her date. Jess was going on and on about how attractive the guy was, how good he was in bed, and all of the details. But I just ignored it. Jess then looked to me and said, "You're lucky you locked her down when you were so young," before she knew that there was better out there, and then turned to my wife and offered to give the guy her number in case she wanted to try him out. I got really angry at that point, so I just said, "I doubt you know anything about better, because your taste in men is why you are a single mom, and not a doctor right now." Both of them just stared at me in shock, and then Jess called me an a-hole and left quickly with her daughter. My wife has been upset with me since, so I have to ask, am I the a-hole? Edit. I just wanted to point out that my wife acknowledges that what Jess said was inappropriate, but thinks that what I said was unnecessarily cruel. It was always Jess's dream to be a doctor like her dad, especially after her dad passed away, and now that's probably never going to happen. Jess has said this to me before, so I was aware of it, and my wife thinks it was uncalled for to press on something that's so clearly a pressure point for her. Jess also frequently bemoans the pains of being a single mom, and about how all of the guys she goes out with ghost her as soon as she mentions her daughter. This is mainly why my wife is upset with me, because she thinks I purposely hurt Jess, while Jess's comments are a joke and aren't meant to hurt my feelings, which is probably mostly true. Now for the comments. Not the a-hole. Your wife is the biggest a-hole. She's allowed Jess to talk down to you for years and done nothing. You deserve better. You are out of her league. Jess is obviously an a-hole for treating you like crap and trying to get your wife to see other men for years. She should be banned from the house. I wouldn't say my wife's done absolutely nothing. I mean, she has told Jess that her comments are inappropriate before. But I honestly think my wife has a hard time standing up to Jess in general. Not even just about me, but Jess also says inappropriate things about my wife. And my wife still doesn't say much. Nothing and not much aren't very far apart in my book. This has been going on for years and should have been stopped already. She's offering your wife phone numbers. She tells her you aren't worthy of her. She's a home wrecker, always has been. Your wife needs to set her straight. My wife has been upset with me since. That's BS treatment from her. Your wife owes you a huge apology and needs to cut contact with Jess. Put your foot down. Not the a-hole, and your wife should not be allowing Jess to disrespect you, especially in your own home. I think you should lay some ground rules out for your wife about how Jess treats you and what you are willing or not willing to tolerate. Jess is very much the a-hole here, but your wife is a close second for not stepping in. Yeah, I think that's necessary. Part of the reason why I feel so strongly about this is because we recently found out that my wife is pregnant, though we haven't told anyone yet. So Jess doesn't know that my wife wants to make Jess the godmother. I personally don't want my kid to be raised by someone who thinks so lowly of one of the parents, but maybe that's just me. Not the a-hole. Why is your wife still friends with someone who constantly puts her husband down and encourages her to cheat at every opportunity? Honestly, I think you're the only one in this situation who isn't an a-hole. Jess is one for obvious reasons. I doubt I have to explain them. Your wife is one for not shutting that nonsense down long ago. But your reaction is justified. You've endured Jess's remarks for years. It's understandable that you finally snapped. Honestly, Jess isn't even particularly nice to my wife either. She's always making inappropriate comments. I didn't include this in the post because I didn't really feel like it was relevant. But my wife told Jess about the crush I had on her when we were younger. And Jess always tell my wife how she could have had me if she wanted, and that she's lucky I never tried to take your man. She even said this in front of both mine and my wife's parents. I seriously don't get her. Good Lord, this woman just gets worse and worse. I think she's actually trying to start drama between you and your wife. She's a turd stirrer for sure. Next story. Am I the a-hole for opting out of my best friend's wedding because they didn't invite my girlfriend? My 28 male childhood best friend Brad, 28 male, is getting married in late May to Vicky, 26 female. A week ago on Easter, I received his wedding invite which only listed my name but not my girlfriend Mary, 28 female. For context, Brad, Mary and I have known each other since high school. We were in the same friend group. Mary and I live around 2 hours away from Brad and Vicky, but because Mary's a nurse, she doesn't always have the time to visit Brad and Vicky with me, so I go alone most of the time. But when she's able, she'll join me. Mary has met Vicky and seen her around 10 times in the past 4 years that Vicky is with Brad. Mary and I have been together for 6 years total, and we do plan on getting engaged and married once we are financially settled. So, I asked Brad if Mary is invited and they just forgot to mention her name. To which he replied that Vicky is very strict about some rules, and in order to cut down costs, she's enforcing a no ring no bring rule for the wedding. So since Mary is just a girlfriend and doesn't have a ring to imply some formality, then she's not invited. I reminded Brad that Mary and I have been together longer than he's with Vicky, and that Mary's also his friend, not just my partner. He says he knows, and tried to talk Vicky out of it, but she's very strict with that. I'll let it go, and I was in a dilemma about whether I should go to the wedding or not because of that. Mary told me she's not happy about the situation, but that I should go to avoid more drama, so I called them to tell them I'll attend. Vicky picked up the phone and said she's sorry about making me uncomfortable by not inviting Mary, but these are the rules. I said I respect the rules. I'm not necessarily happy about it though. She then, for some reason, started being harsh about how Mary and I are not in a serious enough relationship if, after knowing each other for so long and being together for 6 years, we are not engaged yet, and joked that, after all, you never know what tomorrow brings, and that I could break up with Mary anytime since we haven't shown any signs of true commitment. I confronted her and told her that is not her place to validate Mary and I's relationship, and that it's really low of her to use a dumb rule just to shame and micromanage long-term couples who, for whatever reason, haven't gotten married yet. I said I'll pass after all and not attend the wedding. She and Brad said I'm disrespecting them and their choices by choosing Mary over their wedding day, and I said I don't care. Keep your rules, and I'll keep my relationship because it's more important than any exclusive rules that only exist in order to shame people. I've been receiving a lot of backlash from other friends for that choice since, who said I'm an a-hole for being so bitter about something so small. But to me it's not small. They invalidated Mary and our relationship. Not the a-hole. What a stupid rule. And stupid in this instance for many specific reasons. First of all, Mary and Brad were in the same high school friend group, so it could easily be argued that she could be invited purely based on being his friend and totally independent of her relationship with you. Second, using marriage as a barometer of commitment is insane. So by Bride's logic, if cousin Chad gets drunk in Vegas and marries the girl he's been dating for 2 weeks, she would get an invite, while your girlfriend of 6 years would not? That is so dumb. And to top all this off, you were initially willing to let it go and just come anyhow, but then Bride had to double down and insult your relationship to your face. That just sucks. Groom needs to step up and be a good friend and tell Bride she's being ridiculous. I really tried to look past so much stuff and go to the wedding just to honor my friend. I was willing to let go of the fact that Brad didn't even invite Mary not as my girlfriend, but as his friend. They are friends for God's sake. The fact that she's in a relationship with me now doesn't change the fact that we are friends. It is like Vicky wanted to rub it in my face about the no ring, no bring thing, and how insignificant my relationship with Mary is to her. I'd bet $100 that Vicky doesn't like Mary, and that's the real underlying issue here. When someone comes up with a BS rationale like this, it is usually hiding a darker reason. It's often also to show power and dominance. Weddings are a fantastic time to see what people are made of. Here are a few red flags that typically pop up. Many tyrants who override all decisions made by their spouse. I don't consider they're made at all. Responsibility shirkers who try to get out of doing any work. Freeloaders who try to get free stuff for minimal effort. Backstabbers trying to use the occasion to get even for stuff they don't dare address in real life. Typical from the families and bridal parties. False witnesses and people who never intend to stay true to their wedding vows. Attention hogs who try to make the process and party all about themselves. Etc., etc., etc. I've known people like Vicky who get engaged and suddenly look down on anyone who isn't engaged or married, no matter how long a couple has been together. I had an acquaintance who banned all single people from her wedding, even though her fiancé was planning to have several single friends in his wedding party. Some of them had partners for years. The bride said to me that married people shouldn't be around single people. The last time I saw that couple, they were arguing about her rules for their wedding. It's super silly. Last story. Am I the a-hole for supposedly lying about having a son? Everyone involved here is in their late 20s to 30s. So last Christmas, my wife and I threw a Christmas party. A friend of mine I've known half my life, Rick, asked the day before if I could invite a few friends, which we thought was a bit inconvenient but agreed. One of these friends, Mila, brought a little boy with her, could not have been much older than 5. This was not a party for children, and I wish someone would have told me first that a child would be coming, for my wife and I would have advised against it. At a party, Mila's son played up a lot, and at one point was having a full-on tantrum while Mila was in the bathroom. I tried to calm him down, showing him some pictures of our dog we had in our fridge, and when Mila came back she was very grateful. She asked me if I had any children, and I told her I had a 7-year-old. We spoke briefly about our sons, and then she and her son went out to the garden where most of the guests were. The problem is that, in 2021 we lost my son. It was heartbreaking for me and my wife, and not something I wanted to divulge to a stranger. My wife and I still consider ourselves parents, and I would have thought that me being a parent might have been reassuring for her. However, Rick has since begun dating Mila, and has wanted to introduce her to our friends again. The topic of our Christmas party and our brief exchange in the kitchen came up when Rick informed Mila that my son had been dead for over a year. Mila now considers me to be a liar and untrustworthy and is not interested in seeing me again as she thought we had bonded over our sons. And Rick is annoyed he had to be the one to tell her about my dead son and demand I apologize to Mila for misleading her, which my wife finds insulting. On one hand, I do not think I did anything wrong. She was a stranger to me, and I doubted I would ever see her again. But I know this is causing tension in their relationship, and I do not wish to make Rick's life worse. So I am wondering if I should just apologize to keep them both happy. Am I the a-hole? Now for the comments. Not the a-hole. Your wife is right. This is insulting. You don't owe anyone an explanation or apology. You are not obligated to divulge the death of your young son to anyone. Ever. Thank you so much for your comment. Your friend Rick is an a-hole. Some stories/secrets aren't ours to tell. His girlfriend Mila is also an a-hole. She clearly needs to reevaluate herself for getting mad and expecting an apology for something that doesn't concern her. Bonding over a 10-minute convo is bull. She's just looking for a fight. I'm sorry for your loss, OP. Not the a-hole. I think Rick is an a-hole, but not for telling her. This woman became a big part of his life, so he expected for her to spend a lot of time around OP and his wife. They told her of the son's existence, and naturally, she expected that the son would be making an appearance sooner or later. I think telling her beforehand, so she's not constantly brought up their deceased child, or asking to see him was the best thing to do, rather than OP to admit the truth over a double date or a barbecue. He's an a-hole for not immediately kicking this woman to the curb when she heard his friend lost a child and her first thought was, how dare he lie to me, and not how devastating for him. He's an a-hole for being annoyed he had to be the one to tell her, instead of understanding why his best friend for decades might not have dropped it at the middle of a Christmas party. I hope he might have history with this dude, but he sounds self-centered as heck, and now it sounds like there are two of him. It might be time to reevaluate this friendship. Not the a-hole, and Rick is a terrible friend. Sparing you having to be the one to explain that your son is dead should be something he is happy to do as a supportive friend, honestly. And Mila needs to get over herself and not blame you for anything. Her reaction was so cruel. I wonder if she'd told her son about how we'd get to meet your son, and now she's mad she has to explain death to him? Wouldn't justify this behavior, but it might explain it. I think he believes I lied to her to avoid an awkward conversation. So now he is annoyed he was the one who had to have that conversation. Honestly, I wish they had not been talking about my family at all. I had not considered that. It is possible. I have not been told they were planning to have the boy meet up with us again, but they did not mention that he would be attending last time either, so I suppose I cannot rule it out. I do not know her well enough to really judge if she's that sort of person. Thanks for the comment. Not the a-hole at all. This nutty woman has the very worst case of main character syndrome I've ever seen. And Rick's behavior in this absurd situation is unforgivable. The fact that he didn't shut her down immediately says it all. And the fact that he even mentioned this to you makes him utterly unredeemable. He thinks you owe her an apology? They both owe you the most heartfelt and sincere apology in the history of apologies. You wonder if you should apologize to them to keep the peace. Here's the only piece of advice, words to live by actually, that I can offer. The person who's being pressured to keep the peace is never the one who is threatening the peace in the first place. Being friends with these bottom dwellers will ruin your peace, and I'll bet your wife would agree.